Hi there. I'm Cindy Linden, and this is a Cookalong podcast quick bite. Last night, I had what I think is the best cocktail I've ever had. I made mine light on alcohol, and the person I was with, I made with no alcohol as a mocktail, and they were still, honest to God, I think the best cocktails we've ever had. One of my most popular podcasts is a whiskey sour for one recipe that you can find in your podcast feed. It's a very short and sweet little podcast about how to make it for one or how to expand it to 8 people. If you like a whiskey sour, it's a really easy way to do it, and you don't have to cook anything. No simple syrup, no nothing, super easy. This is the same, and it just floored me how good this is. It comes from Tegan Gerard at halfbakedharvest.com, and I so want to salute her and thank her. This is so good, and I'm very, very excited to share it with you. It's a vanilla, cinnamon, maple whiskey sour. That sounds like a lot of flavors that may not even work together, but trust me, they so do. The maple is in the form of the maple syrup, which is also what I use instead of simple syrup in my whiskey sour cocktail because it's easier. You don't have to cook anything. You don't have to keep anything. You don't have to store anything. And the maple is just as sweet, a little thicker, which is nice. And it adds this sort of subtle but unidentifiable nuance to the drink. You cannot tell it's maple. This is really kind of the same. I'm so excited about this drink. It makes me want to have them all the time. Tegan Gerard on the website does something a little fancier than I do, and she makes a garnish with a sugared vanilla rosemary branch. I didn't bother with that. I just wanted to taste the cocktail. And I probably won't ever bother with that unless I'm serving it to a group. But one of the loveliest things about this, for my mind, is that the recipe is just made for one. So this is a gift, a treat from you for you. No fancy ingredients, no cooking, just amazing flavor. Here is the ingredient list. 2 ounces of bourbon. I use black velvet whiskey because that's my favorite. It's smooth and easy. If you wanted to make a mocktail, non-alcoholic version of this, you replace that with 2 ounces of a good apple cider. I'm not talking about apple juice, like the yellow stuff you can see through. I'm talking about a murky, cloudy, dark brown apple cider. Probably the refrigerated kind is going to be best if you can find it in your grocer's refrigerated section. And when I did this, as I said, I made one with no alcohol and just the apple cider, and the other one, I used 1 ounce of the alcohol and 1 ounce of the apple cider. And I really loved it that way. I guess I need to try it with just the alcohol now, just because I know that the apple is adding some significant flavor, but I kind of loved it. So maybe if it's working, don't fix it. Next ingredient is 1 ounce of lemon juice. That's 2 tablespoons. You need 1 tablespoon of maple syrup, and that's the real thing. We're talking real maple syrup, not just pancake syrup. Although that might work in a pinch. I don't know. About 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla extract. See, this is where it gets unusual. To put the vanilla with the lemon and the whiskey, and then about 1/8 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. You put all those things into a cocktail shaker, or if you don't have one, in a glass jar with a tight-fitting lid. You put all those things together. You add a couple of ice cubes, 2 to 3 ice cubes. You put the lid on it and you shake that thing up. Just shake it and shake it and shake it until the ice cubes are kind of smallish, maybe half their original size. And then you strain the beverage itself into a glass. The ice cubes out, that is it. It is so easy. I suppose, like a whiskey sour, you could garnish it with a cherry. But that's kind of almost overkill. I don't really think it needs that extra sweetness. But of course, it's a fancy and very special event kind of cocktail anyway. So if you want to top it with a cherry, go for it. When you serve it, if you're making a drink for somebody else and you want it to be fancy, You could stick a cinnamon stick in there for them to kind of muddle around in there and stir it. And if you get really determined to do something fancy, and at this point I have to assume that you're making more than one so that you're sharing with your partner or a small group, you might want to visit the website at halfbakedharvest.com and look for the vanilla cinnamon maple whiskey sour and read about how she creates sugared vanilla rosemary, which you stick the whole branch of in the drink. I didn't want the rosemary flavor in there, and like I said, I did not want to work that hard. And the drink was gone too fast to even care. I wasn't going to eat it afterwards. So I made it without that garnish. I'm sure it would be pretty. You are welcome to work that hard if that amuses you. Whether you do that or you just do the very simple thing of putting these things all together in a glass. I hope you will try this. Whoa, a screech. Wait, hold it. This is a before the ending addendum. I decided it really was irresponsible of me to post this podcast without doing the recipe the way it was initially created. So last night, I made it without any apple cider at all and with the full dose of alcohol. And I have two things to tell you. First, I like it better with a little apple cider. Secondly, it's still, even with no apple cider, so good that I kind of sucked it down much faster than I should have done and regretted it afterward. That is just a warning that if you're going to put 2 ounces of whiskey in something, maybe you don't want it so tasty that you inhale it. I will go back to making it with part whiskey and part apple cider for my brain and my health, and also because I prefer the flavor. And now that I've done my due diligence to this recipe, I return you to your regularly scheduled ending. It is kind of a winter cocktail. I want you to settle down in a nice, cozy, warm place in front of a fire or a movie or a good book, snuggled up in a blanket with this cocktail in your hand. I guarantee you a most wonderful, cozy winter evening. This is the cat's pajamas, as they used to say. That's all I wanted to tell you about today. Tune in next week for a full-size Cookalong podcast and a couple of weeks from now for another quick bite. Tell a friend about this cocktail. Share this cocktail with a friend and tell them you heard it on the Cookalong podcast. And until next time, happy cooking!